Hey, NAI football fans, Corey Thorpe here with another edition of the NAIF Ball Podcast, powered by AdCraft USA, your custom apparel, merch, and uniform experts. Our friends at AdCraft have been with us for many years now. They've run web stores for us multiple times. These guys are NAI fans and family who are experts in the apparel and merchandise world. AdCraft allows you to take the hassle out of ordering. Let their knowledgeable design and customer service staff handle everything from hosting the store online, shipping the product, and helping your customers so you can get back to the game. Find them online at adcraftusa.com. All right, NAI football fans, this is Corey Thorpe back with another edition of the NAIF Ball Podcast. We are previewing tonight. It's going to be a long one, so buckle and strap it up. This is what happens when you have an 11-team conference. Got Matt in here, as always. We can do the big
Go
boy
Tigers.
tonight. Go Tigers.
Go
We're
Tigers.
we're gonna be looking at the GPAC. Gonna be a fun night. So, like I said, strap in, and we're gonna start in an unlikely place, because strangely enough, a 4-win team is the worst by SP plus. Beats me. They improved by 3 wins over last season, but they just, yeah, I don't know. Their stats just didn't improve that much in terms of SP plus.
Yeah, this was a team that defensively had much more production, but the offense that they usually are known for having that big play potential wasn't really there last year. Granted, the team was more complete, was much more put together. They did a lot of good stuff. It also helps that they have Tulsa Janish returning, also Christian Mendoza returning on the special teams side of things. But you do lose Okoro, who was your main guy on the offensive side of the ball in that receiver core. Anyways, it's I don't know. It's always hard to read this team. I talk about it every time we talk about the GPAC. These guys are really good in the transfer portal, or whatever the NAI's version of the transfer portal is,
We'll run with that.
because you know how we do things on this side of college football.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the schedule from last year, talking about the weirdnesses of that, you've got to win over Doane, you've got to win over Hastings, which you kind of expect at this position that you're in. But 2 late season wins versus Dakota Wesleyan and Jamestown. Really, and they were close wins, both of them. Um, really sort of, I don't want to say that you didn't deserve to win, because obviously, you know, if you have a higher number by your name than your opponent does, you deserve to win. But, you know, those two might not have been high on the game control metric for them. But you know what? For those folks over there, 4 wins is growth, and you can absolutely sell that for sure. And you can also sell that you should be a whole heck of a lot better this year, because you're returning nearly all of your offense. Apart from Aaron Okoro, I mean, you're returning most of your wide receivers. You've got a 2-headed quarterback in Brock Saya and Luke Davies. Got to figure out which one of those you want. And you return all your running backs, so you should be good. Your defense might struggle a little bit with a couple of the losses that you're having, um, mostly at linebacker and defensive back, where you're going to have to plug some holes. Um, but this might be. Yeah, I don't think next year we're going to see Briarcliff in the cellar spot at the GPAC when we're doing our 2025 preview.
I agree. And this is always a Briarcliff team. Look, I played in this conference firsthand. I played this team 4 times at my own expense. Sioux City, first of all, is cursed. I don't know what it is about that freaking place, man. I don't think Dakota Wesley's won there in like a bajillion years or something stupid. Um, but this is always a Briarcliff team that has really good athletes, and at any given moment, they can flip that switch and really surprise some people. I think with the pieces they have returning on the offensive side of the ball, again, mention it a million times, even if that offensive production isn't what you would like it to be, you have the experience coming back and a lot to work off of on that side of the ball. So
So as we move up, we get we go a little bit up the ladder here, going over to Doan. Doan having a really good season on some other in some other sports, especially baseball, that has done a great job this year out of the GPAC. But the football team, boy, they struggled offensively. 91st offense, 3.77 yards per play is not what you want to see, but you had a good defense to back it up.
yeah, this Stone team always has an impressive defense. They run that 3-3 stack for the most part, which is a really honestly good system for them. It works really well. Correct me if I'm wrong. They do have some coaching changes coming this season, though, don't they?
Yes, we've noticed it a little bit on Football Scoops, seeing some of the advertisements that have been up on Football Scoop over the last few months. Looks like they're trying to fill some position coaching spots there, and you know what was that, Matt? Maybe a month ago at max. I mean, you're trying to do
Hmm.
this after spring practice. That's going to be a toughie if
Yeah,
you're Doan. I mean, I feel for those kids. I mean, going through spring ball, maybe not having a full on coaching staff, um, and even if you did, now you're going to have to learn the style of a new coach. Um, if not over summer, you're going to have to learn it in fall camp, and that's a tough position to be in.
absolutely. If there are some guys that can get it done for them defensively, though, even amidst those changes, Jared Boggs is definitely spearheading that group. One of the main staples of that team. This team always has fantastic linebackers. The way that stack defense works out, a lot of those linebackers are flying around making plays in the first place. So obviously, Jared Boggs is familiar with that. Did a fantastic job with that last season. And also the offensive side of the ball, David Garcia coming back. And hey, we love our punters, Kellen Meyer. We see you, big dog.
I mean, those
Um,
numbers are good. A long of 74 is amazing, but a 41.1
yeah,
yard, anything over 40 in the
mhm,
NAIA is your primo punters. And Kellen's averaging 41.1. That's going to get it done just about every time. You return a
mhm,
majority on both sides of the ball, including your starting quarterback, which, that's a big deal. Cruz Kirwan
yeah,
coming back. You're going to have to figure out who's going to throw it to. I know they're probably, I hope that they're going to be working on it, in summer camp, putting in that extra work. You only bring about a half your wide receiver production back. So it's definitely something that, if you're Cruz, you've got to be focused on making sure your wide receivers are taken care of, and that you grow that connection.
absolutely. This is a Doan team every year that, and I sing the praises of the GPAC. I'm obviously very biased, but this is a tough team to play. No matter how good or bad you are, they tend to play people pretty close, even if the wins don't necessarily reflect it. Unfortunately for them, real Tigers do wear blue. I hate to say it. But I think they'll be in a pretty solid spot next season.
And as we keep going, we find ourselves up in Yankton, South Dakota, with the Mount Marty Lancers, 3-8, 2-8 on the year last year. They had a good offense last year. Um, Defense slid back a little bit, but that's mostly Jonah Miyazawa there on and Rex Ryken. Obviously, Ryken's coming back. Ryken was, 600 yards from the tight end position and 10 touchdowns. That's pretty okay right there. Miyazawa added 810 yards and 10 touchdowns himself, but we'll see. This is the I feel like this is the put up or shut up year for Mount Marty. You've been around. You've started to lose a little bit of your initial um, push of a team. How do you grow from this juncture?
Absolutely. And I think at the quarterback position with Ken Gay coming back, they're in a good spot there. He's definitely somebody who we haven't seen a whole lot of until last year. He's been in their system for a while though, and obviously they've gotten some talented guys with Rex Ryken coming back too. Having that big body in the middle that you can reliably put a ball up to is does a lot for a quarterback's confidence and for an offense's confidence.
Yeah. On this one, though, I will say, as opposed to Doan, who only return a majority of their defense, Mount Marty returns most of their defense. So, even though about half of your wide receiver core isn't coming back, and yeah, you're still going to have to put in the over summer work uh, if you're Ken Gay, but Mount Marty has a little bit of a defense that's coming back that they might be able to fall back on, whereas Doan's got a lot of pieces that they're going to have to put back together in that defense.
Absolutely, and this is a team that has a lot of pride in what they do. Being able to play them as a rival school in the first couple of years of their team's existence, obviously them being a newer program, they're really excited about what they're building. And I know that the record isn't always going to reflect that, but man, they are they are proud to be Mount Marty Lancers. I'll give them that much. And they fly around. They got a chip on their shoulder. That's all the nice things I'll
Hey,
say
hey,
about them.
Matt, you know what does reflect the pride of Mount Marty?
What's that?
Those beautiful gold helmets.
Credit where credit's due, man.
The
Shiny helmets.
the Notre Dame of the NAIA.
Hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know.
Dude, I love a good gold helmet. I mean, Florida State's isn't that shiny, and I wish it was. As we move up, we get to the OGs, the Hastings College Broncos. This is a team where we were talking about them last year and looking back at their 2022, and their 2022 was really, really good. A 7-4 record, if I remember correctly, and we said coming in it's going to be tough for Hastings, and uh, they were who we thought they were. Um, you know, but still, you're within a yard of um, parity between your offense and defense. A much more balanced team last year, with the offense really taking a step forward and the defense kind of taking a step back. But that's not a bad spot for Hastings. When we first started this, Matt, I mean, Hastings was, um, they were the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, they were in a very not good spot as a program. They have built back up. They've been very impressive. The guys that they've put out on the field have been really good for the system. I think a big point of emphasis too is that linebacker room they have coming back. Obviously, they do have, unfortunately, Mac Myers leaving, who's an all-conference guy, but the rest of that room is returning, which I think is a big point for them because that defensive line in years previous has been a big point of emphasis for them, and those linebackers are going to have to be the ones to step up this time around.
Yeah, especially because you're losing both Shaw and Uday
Mm-hmm.
there. So you're going to have to figure that one out. But you do return most of your offense, and this is an offense that has taken steps forward from 2022 on. We can definitely see this Hastings team continuing to take that step forward. You're just going to have to figure out what you're doing in terms of your defensive line. Obviously, trying to win the point of attack. I mean, when you're facing up against teams like Dordt and Northwestern and Morningside, which like to make you pay up front, you're going to have to get that defensive line figured out really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the interesting things over the last year with GPAC is the coming demise of the North Star, and obviously we'll talk more about the North Star when we get to the ends, going in alphabetical order, of course. But feels weird that the GPAC and the North Star executed what amounts to a 1-for-1 trade with Waldorf getting traded to the GPAC and Jamestown, who's going D2 in 2026. No, 25 years. Math is hard. Jamestown going
It's true.
D2 in 2025, giving the North Star a team, a loner team to play with. I think this actually is going to work out really well for the GPAC and for the North Star, honestly. Obviously we saw North Star is getting folded into for football purposes into the Frontier. I think that's a good spot for them. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work out with the GPAC to take anybody else from the North Star except for Waldorf, which is what they did.
Absolutely, and I think geographically, I mean, just being in Iowa, one of the few Iowa schools in that conference, it just makes life so much easier for them. I think Dakota State too would have been a very easy pick, but obviously the GPAC, as we know, traditionally is a private school conference. That's just how they've been for the most part. And you know what? I love the pumpkin heads, love the jimmies, but trading orange for purple is never a bad thing. I think purple's a good color.
And honestly, it's not just tradition. That is GPAC bylaw that
Hmm.
you must be a Christian school. You can't just be like a private school for the sake of being private, like we do see in some of our NAI schools.
Hmm.
Um, you do have to be a Christian school, which is cool. In this case, it sort of limits you to what you can do. But Waldorf had a okay season in the North Star last year. They broke even on their parity. I am very interested to see how they play in the GPAC. I, to be honest, I don't know that they're going to be middle of the pack.
I'm hesitant to be super confident in this team just because I had to eat crow about Arizona Christian.
Yeah,
So, pardon me, Waldorf fans, if I'm a bit hesitant here. I do think they can make some noise. I think they can win some games that people don't expect them to win. It's just transitioning from a much more competitive conference. That's
yeah,
ultimately what it is. But they do have some pretty good pieces coming back. Obviously, Hill, their star running back, is coming back. They got Logan Miller on the O line leading the way for him, and Will Strickland in the defensive backfield is an absolute monster. And Isaac Burgett flipping the field for them is also going to be a key member.
the big thing here is you do see a couple of wideouts, a couple of linebackers, big spots for you there. Um, you also don't return a quarterback that um, was saw you know effectively any game action. Um, Nicholas Siegel was 1 for 2 for 2 yards and interceptions. So technically, my man still hasn't thrown an incomplete pass in last season. So
That's
there,
a fun narrative. I
that
like
is
that.
that is fun. Um, but you're gonna have to figure that out quick because this league can put up numbers on you and fast. So you're gonna have to figure out what you're gonna do there. Defensively, you do return a majority, but unfortunately, like we said earlier, with just what you've got coming back, and then going from a conference like the North Star going into the GPAC, it's going to be a hard road to hoe for Waldorf. I'm afraid to say.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm excited to see how they make the transition over the next couple years. And welcome to the fold, fellas. Just gotta say.
And we will be right back after this word from our friends at AdCraft.
So you want to create and sell custom merch for your team or business. That's exciting, but where do you begin? How much inventory should you order? How do you distribute orders? AdCraft has your answers. Streamline the way you offer custom merch by utilizing our risk-free web store service. We ship directly to each customer, and we have the fastest turnaround in the game. Raise funds for your team or get merch to your employees and patrons. Contact AdCraft today, and let's bring your merch to life.
They are the best at that. Give them a try. Let them run a web store for you and see what they can do. They're going to take care of you. Fantastic customer service. Contact our friends at AdCraft. They're good folks. They're NAI folks, and I know that other places probably have some NAI folks working for them. But when you're talking about the ownership of a company, that NAI hardworking mentality, it goes right to the core of who AdCraft is. They're going to take care of you. Um, give them a call. Give them a shot. I guarantee you're not going to regret it. Good folks. So let's go to the one that I know, most excited to talk about. It was a absolute banner year for your Dakota Wesleyan Tigers, cracking our top 25 on a couple of occasions. And, the season doesn't end the way that you want it. You sort of fade down the stretch. But for a team that has struggled in years prior, this is a really good way to end a run for Ross Semple as the head coach of Dakota Wesleyan. Obviously, he is transferring into administration and leaving his football team in the capable hands of another guy there. And we'll see, because Matt, you tell me that they are they're trying to restock the pantry off of what's a banner year.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, obviously they had so many fourth and fifth year guys running this team last year. Jamin Aaron, Keel Nelson, Parker Grotejohn, excuse me, just to name a few guys that I am close friends with. All had amazing careers. Jamin Aaron ending as the all-time leading rusher for Dakota Wesleyan, which is huge. Obviously, you're going to be missing him a lot. Just a lot of that older leadership that usually is coming back for this team is not going to be there. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. But I'll tell you what, the defensive side of this team, Cory, I mean, you have Ethan Engen likely coming back. You have Victor Kanishi coming back. You have Cale Stevenson. All fantastic athletes, all fantastic football players on a defense that was already impressive last season. You bring a lot of that youth back. They're stepping into those leadership roles now. These are guys who have been in the program for a bit, know what it's about. And obviously, with Coach Kretschmar taking things over for this team, also a guy who's been around the block a few times. He was mostly an offensive guy in special teams for Dakota Wesleyan, and now stepping into that full-time head coaching role. Really happy for him. He's a great dude, and I think he's going to continue a lot of the stuff that Simple did with this program, which I think is a good thing. But I'm excited to see what kind of spin he puts on stuff. Obviously, that offense is going to have to reload. You're missing Austin Lee, who was your starting quarterback for years, as well. It's gonna be interesting as an alum, as a fan, as a guy who wore the uniform for this team. I'm really excited to see what they're capable of next season, and it's kind of fun to. I'm far enough removed now to where I kind of don't know what's going to happen. They have a lot of good youth. Obviously, Max Robb and those guys in the tight end receiver room that I've become close with are in their later years now. Excited to see what they can do. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun year for the Tigers. I think gonna learn a lot.
Yeah, we're gonna see what kind of recruiting class they were able to bring in. Obviously, when you have a high watermark year, you want to try to um, capitalize on that with a great recruiting class and selling the high watermark and keeping that going. We'll see. I mean, as not an alum, I do expect Dak West to take a step back. It's not going to be a tumble into the cellar, but I think you take a step back.
I also, hey, I got to give my fellas props. I talked all that crap last year about the Dakota State game. My fellas pulled through. Shout out to them. Appreciate it. If they're playing again, Frontier Conference, get ready for a loss on your record, buddy.
Well, there's one more year of the NSAA.
Oh yeah. Okay, North Star still. I mean, same thing. Whatever. It's fine.
It's kind of like the Pac-12.
Hey, all right. We don't have to take personal shots now. Okay. Some of us are still struggling and recovering from that. So.
Yeah, rip. I do hate to see a conference go under. But
yeah.
Anyway, moving on to Nebraska. Concordia University, Nebraska, the Bulldogs, barely moving the needle there, going 5-5 again. You're about right where you were in last year's SP Plus, which honestly to me is a little surprising with what they had coming back, and maybe you had a little bit of turnover at some spots, but I was sort of surprised to see them hold serve there. I thought they might take a step forward.
I think so. I think for this team, it was a struggle post Lane Napier for the defense. That was a guy who was a 5-time all-conference dude for you and was literally the staple of one half of the ball for half a decade. It's kind of hard to readjust for that, but I will say, obviously defensively 52nd in SP plus last year. I'm expecting a huge leap forward from this defense. Concordia traditionally has a fantastic defense, and they were still decent last year. Certainly not as dominant as we're used to seeing, but they are returning pretty much the whole squad on that side of the ball. Obviously, Kyle Stirrup being the main force on that defensive line, causing problems. In that linebacker room, I know Lynn Napier's not there, but they've adjusted from the year before. I think they'll be just fine. I think that this is a well-coached team. This is a team that when that defense gets rolling is really, really hard to play. And I think that's to their benefit next season.
Offensively, you've still got DJ McGarvey, and he really stepped up, and you've got a good receiver in Austin
Absolutely.
Chablonsky.
Yep.
You're going to fill, Devin Ziegler's, hole there, but that is honestly you return an all-conference quarterback, and that is a huge plus that not many people get to do. But what you're going to be able to do there on the passing side of the football, I still have high hopes for Concordia, Nebraska. Moving on then to Midland, who, Matt, maybe it's just me, but after watching Midland play in the KCAC for flag football, this still feels weird.
It was weird when I went to homecoming for Dakota Wesleyan and they won. I guess that wasn't weird because, obviously, it was the first time in a few years they'd beat them, though. So just got to mention that. But Midland, man, this is a team that is always nipping at the heels of that top tier of the GPAC, is always causing issues, is in and out of the rankings from year to year. They are also another group who usually picks from the portal pretty well. They got a swagger to them that on the field translates well. They get in teams' heads. They are a very good football squad, and they have a lot of talent. It's very similar to the conversation we have with Briar Cliff. Obviously, Tyson Denkert coming back is also humongous. That is just a playmaker right there, returning for you.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're going to get a guy who's got a kick return touchdown, definitely a guy who's shifty. If you get him a little bit of space, a little bit of crease, he can be gone. 910 yards, you might see him a little bit featured more because you don't return a whole lot in your receiver core. So you really might see Denkert featured a whole lot more. Obviously, Callan Coates, we waved goodbye to him with 776 receiving yards and 110 rushing yards, a dual threat guy there. Those linebackers, led by Treden Davis-Reed, are going to have to step it up, though. You only return about half your D-line, about half your defensive backs. It's going to be interesting for that defensive coaching staff to try to figure out how they're going to plug holes there. That's half is a lot of losses. You're talking about 5 or 6 players. Over an entire defense, of a room where, you'll have about 11 starters going like 6 coming back, 5 lost. That's a lot of snaps that you're going to have to replace. I am not sold on Midland for this year. I think that you could easily see them in Concordia switch places where they are. But, we'll see. Because like you said, they're a portal-heavy team. You can plug and play.
Yeah, and this is a team that I will never count out. In years past, we've seen them rise to the occasion against some of the better teams in this conference. And have, for the most part, taken care of the teams beneath them. And I think that's always a good sign of a program that has a good base. So they are obviously working with a lot of good stuff. I think this is a team that can ultimately surprise some people. I'm in a similar camp to you, but I'm not super eager to say like they'll take a step back. I think they could be in a similar, or even take a step up. Again, we'll just have to see. It'll depend a lot on who fills where.
And now this is where the GPAC gets crazy because we step from Midland, who is 45th in SP plus, and then we snap our neck over to Dort, who's 15th in SP plus. Boy, what a fan-flippin-tastic year for the Defenders last year. Man alive, taking advantage of the extra spots in the playoffs. And, they acquitted themselves very, very nicely in those playoffs. Joel Penner and staff have, I think they might have found their groove.
Absolutely. And I think, too, the conversation with this team is a little different than it's been in years past. Usually we talk about the GPAC and we talk about it being kind of the mid to bottom tier, Dort kind of on an island in the northwestern Morningside. I think this season it's a big three. I think it's a top three. I don't think Dort is nipping to get in the conversation. I think they're in the conversation, especially when you look at how much this team returns. Oh my God.
It's a bit. It's a bit.
Yeah. And this is like the visual, if you're watching on YouTube, like that's about half of it. Like that's not even the full list of guys coming back that
Yeah,
are
so
noteworthy.
there's about 6 players that did not make all conference
Hmm.
that are coming back that were major pieces. I'll just run through it. Colson Cruz, quarterback, 1,220 yards, 10 touchdowns, 7 picks, 54.4% completion percentage, 6.7 yards per attempt, 642 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns, 5.3 yards per carry for a quarterback, where sacks are recorded as rushing yards.
Welcome to real football. This
Welcome.
is triple option, pal.
Heck yeah. Triple option RPO. Nick Wellen coming back, running back. 836 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. Brendan Piper, 769 yards, 12 touchdowns. Wide receiver Isaac Looker, 458 yards, touchdown. Wide receiver Cade Rower, 246 yards, 5 touchdowns. And defensively, Tyler Waringa. How a man has 93 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, an interception, and 3 pass breakups, and doesn't make all conference first or second team. That's you either had some really good linebackers, or we're going to use the SNUB word here.
I think too it's a case of too many cooks in the kitchen. I think that's kind of what we're running into a little bit here. It's a good problem to have, but obviously you bring guys like that back who got a chip on their shoulder, and this is a Dort team that is, oh my God, like even if they don't win the conference, they're going to be in the playoff picture. Obviously, I'm not going to guarantee anything. I'm not a guy like that, but whew, this is a scary team.
And I think the thing that's a little odd that you're losing is Jessup Leakey.
Yeah.
And you're going from him being an all GPAC first teamer to now being on the coaching staff. You've got a guy that you're bringing back in terms of your offensive coordinator now that was in the high water mark of Dort a few years back when they last made the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
This team is starting to when they beat Morningside and still return this, they have put themselves in that top tier.
Yep.
You can beat Morningside, and it be a high water mark for you. You got a ton of seniors. You're going to lose a lot of them. When you beat Morningside and you bring back that much, yep, welcome to the top tier, boys. Don't get a big head while you're here, because you still got to play the games.
Yep. I think too it's always so difficult with this top tier of the GPAC. And now you add a third team to the mix, like flip a coin and then flip a coin again, I guess. Like these games are going to be off the charts this year between these three teams.
It's going to be fun. I mean,
Mhm.
now you do return only a majority of your defense. You're going to have to fill your holes on the defensive line. You do return basically everyone else behind that D line. But you're talking about a defense that was 5th last year in SP Plus numbers. Even if you take a step back to 12th, you're probably you're going to be okay. As long as your offense starts hitting on all cylinders, which honestly, it definitely, if not can, it should.
Absolutely.
Then we take a look at the Morningside Mustangs, and again, it's weird. This is wild to not see a double-digit win total by Morningside's name.
Yeah. I can't believe we're talking about this team like this is one of the quote-unquote worst seasons in recent memory.
Well,
that
it
you
is.
still go 9-3 and are 9th in SP Plus. But hey, we're here, I guess.
This is the first time that I can remember that we've done, all of this, that Morningside has not had 7 yards per play offensively.
Mm-hmm.
5, 6 years. Morningside has always been hitting 7 yards per play plus. To take that basically 7/10 of a yard step back was huge. I honestly, I think they know what they have to do here. And we'll get to that here, but they have a ton returning between Ryan Cole and Zach Norton on the offensive side. Isaac Pingle, Malik Hampton, Dijon Walls. You got Lake and Harnley in there on your punt return. You do lose Lionel Boyd. That's a huge loss. That's a stud right there for you that you're going to have to figure out how to fill. But Matt, the biggest question on Morningside is, who is your quarterback?
Absolutely. I am very curious to see how it plays out because obviously last year we had the Lennox Brown Cash Parker experience, which was certainly interesting for them when quarterback is usually a position that they have not had to worry about in recent memory. I think they learned a lot in that year. I don't know how they're going to use it or go about it. All I am confident in is that they have a better idea of how it's going to look next season.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, if you go back and you listen to my interview with Steve Ryan, Steve was very upfront and said that they must pick a guy next year. He thinks that did not that ended up hurting the team last year, and even down the stretch, you even added Zach Chevalier to the mix. So you have this 3-headed quarterback monster who, through the air, threw 2,600 yards, 22 touchdowns, 14 picks, 7.8 yards per attempt. Lennox added 1,000 yards on the ground. What are you going if you don't line Lennox up at quarterback? You've got to put him somewhere.
he's too good of an athlete to not be on the field.
Right. So, are you going to tell Ryan Cole, who's been a 2-time GPAC all-conference player, we're going to platoon you and Lennox? Or are you going to maybe put Lennox out at wide receiver and try to see if you can do that? Is he going to be a gadget player like, who's that quarterback for the Saints, Matt?
Oh, Taysom Hill.
Yeah. Are you going to Taysom Hill, Lennox Brown? I can't tell you. I don't know. It's an oddity for sure. But I know one thing. If you don't have Lennox Brown at quarterback, you've got to have him somewhere on a down-to-down basis.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, that's really the main talking point for this team. Like the rest of the roster is business as usual for Morningside. I
It
mean, this is a
really is.
very talented team. They have a lot coming back, like we mentioned already. It is just a matter of what does the quarterback room look like, and how do you build your offense around that? You might have to switch up things you're not used to switching up to make it work, which I think is a part of it that also has to be considered. But
Yeah, look, that's why I'm glad that Steve Ryan is Steve Ryan and that I'm not Steve Ryan.
yep, there's a reason we don't get paid to do what that man does. So,
And he's really good at it.
mhm.
So now we go to the reigning runners up, Northwestern. And Matt, you might be thinking after back to back national championship appearances, taking home a red banner, that, going fourth in SP plus, 14-1 record, fifth ranked offense, sixth ranked defense, that you're going to lose a lot of players. And I'm going to tell you
Oh,
here that would be a very incorrect assumption. Yeah, Jalen Gramstad's back, and you can probably end the discussion right there.
yeah. And if that wasn't enough for you some reason, Connor McQuillan, also back, pretty good
Unfair.
football player, to put it lightly.
Absolutely unfair. Now, you want to know something that's really, really, really unfair. Do you remember last year we talked about a kid who was leaving, linebacker,
Yeah.
in 2022 for Morningside or for Northwestern, had 120 tackles and 12 tackles for loss and 2 forced fumbles and 2 picks and 6 pass
Yep.
breakups. Yeah, that kid. And we said that he was transferring to the University of South Dakota to be with his brother. Well, he had 43 tackles, a half a tackle for loss, forced fumble, and an interception, which is not bad for an FCS team.
Not bad.
It's not like you went to a D2 and did that. But
Yep.
he's back, Parker Fryer. I mean, you bring back him. Cole Telford is back. I mean, didn't make an all conference pick, but 65 tackles, a forced fumble, 4 pass breakups, 5 tackles for loss. You got Mosier back, got Mulder back, got Egley back.
I will say, it is tough to lose Michael Story.
It is.
That's a tough loss for them.
You do get back Tanner Shelton, though.
You do, 100%. But I think we saw Story, how fantastic he was. It is definitely going to be big shoes to fill.
Yep.
And it's kind of hard to replicate the type of season he had last year. But I mean, if there is a roster or team that is capable of doing that, Northwestern is in the conversation to be one of them. But man, this team again, my God.
The other thing that's really nice about getting Parker Fryer in is that you do lose Ben Kingery, who had 90 tackles.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about we talked about dadgum, the Tyler Waringa with 93 tackles and all that stuff for Dort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ben Kingery wasn't a all conference selection either with 6.5 tackles for loss. You lose him, you plug Parker Fryer in. And I mean, I think that'll say it all right here. You return nearly all of your offense from an offense that was elite last season. You've got some holes to patch on your defense, especially along your defensive line. But I don't know, man. That's almost unfair.
It's just wild because Northwestern, Morningside, and Dort this coming year would all be, in most cases, number 1 or number 2 in any other conference. And the fact that there's a chance that, maybe a fluke loss, maybe something, it's the SEC argument. It's all that garbage. It's just ridiculous that these teams are playing each other regularly.
I beg the GPAC. Find some Sisters of the Poor Christian school in the Midwest, and please, for the love of all that's good, can you split into 2 divisions?
Bring back Nebraska Wesleyan? Question mark.
I don't care who you have to bring in.
Yeah, someone.
Honestly,
let's make it work.
let's find someone. Let's split the GPAC into 2 divisions. Let's make it to where we're not, from an NAI standpoint, let's not be wasting at-large spots on Morningside and Dort. Let's make one of them win a division. Give them an auto bid. Make your life easier. Find somebody.
We don't like easy around these parts, Cory.
Find me. Look, if you could have held on to Jamestown for 1 year, I mean, like,
no kidding.
dude. But so that brings us to the same point where we get to stick our feet in our mouth sometimes.
More times than not.
More times than not. I'll start on my winner. I go with a hot hand. Right now, Northwestern offensively doesn't have a hole to fill. Morningside has a hole at the most important position on the football field. Northwestern's got a cabinet full of DBs and D linemen to plug and play. They're going to be fine defensively. And even if they're not, Jalen Gramstad can just outscore people at will. So, or shall I say, like Texas Tech people to death for those who get that reference. I can't pick against Northwestern at this point. Also,
well, you're wearing the shirt. I would hope not.
Also, big shout out. Completely unrelated to my pick, obviously. Got the new sticker on the laptop. Got the new drip, and look, it has a hood. I can't get it over. I can't get it over the ears.
Sickening.
I can't get it over my ears.
Sickening. They're paying you off, man. I mean, I can't say I disagree with your pick at all.
I mean, you send me, you send me care packages. I'm not saying it affects my decision because it doesn't, but it sure is nice to receive care packages. Matt, who you got winning this conference?
I said I can't disagree with you, Cory, but actually I can. I got Morningside, and here's the thing.
All right.
Okay. Now, granted, flip a coin with these top 3 teams. It wouldn't be a hot take to take Northwestern or Morningside or Dort. Honestly, you could convince me of all 3. The thing for me is that you mentioned that they have to figure out the quarterback position. For me, that means that their potential, and I hate that word. I hate the word potential. It's a dumb word because that doesn't mean anything's actually happened. But there's a higher ceiling with Morningside, I think, than there is with Northwestern. And that's not to say Northwestern can't have a better statistical year than they did last season, that they can't break records compared to last season. But I just think there was a lot more to this Morningside team that we haven't seen yet. And I think because of that, there's a case to be made that if they figure out that quarterback room, and I mean, if there's anybody that's going to be able to figure it out, Coach Ryan is the guy. So I think that's what convinces me. Now, obviously, this could very easily crash and burn, and I could look like a complete, fill in with whatever word you want. But I'm so used to that. I don't care at this point. I'm rolling with Morningside on this one. But man, the top three in this conference is just ridiculous this year.
It really is. And honestly, before we get to our dark horse, we determined because if Matt had let me, I would have picked Dort as the dark horse. But
They're not in the dark horse conversation anymore.
they're not.
They're not. They're
And
there.
yeah, they are there. They are in the hunt. So, Dort fans, don't get your panties in a wad. You're not winning either of our dark horses because you're too good for that at this juncture.
It's a good way to put it. They'll be happy with that.
You have outgrown needing to be a dark horse. You can just straight prove us wrong at this juncture.
Yep.
So that being said, Matt, who you got for your dark horse?
I mentioned that this team is horrifying when the defense figures it out. I got to roll with Concordia for the dark horse. Now, I'm usually picking Dakota Wesley, and I'm aware of this. It's, hey, I will take off the blue tinted glasses for this one. Concordia, though, with all that's returning on defense, with some of the gaps that they filled, they've gotten used to the changes with some of their top program guys leaving. I think this is a good coaching staff that has proven that they are able to hang with the big dogs when they got a team that they like and is functioning well. I think Concordia is the team that's going to be nipping at the heels this year. There's always one, and I think it's going to be them.
Well, I'm going to borrow phrase from my esteemed co-host, Matt Schwartzler. I am never wrong. I am just late. And I'm just going to roll with the same dark horse pick I did last year because eventually it has to come true.
That's the gambler's fallacy, actually. But hey, I like where your head's at.
And I'm going to go with Concordia. They're going to be better. You've got DJ McGarvey. You've got a really good wide receiver core. Returning wide receiver production is key to having a growing offense. I'm sold on Concordia, even if their linebackers aren't great. I think their offense is going to be good enough to make it happen. And Dort, Morningside, and Northwestern all need to watch out for the Bulldogs. They could be a trap game if positioned right on the schedule.
Do you think when teams see us pick the same team for one of these, it's like College Game Day, where you're like, oh no, where it's like the jinx kind of deal?
I'm sure it is with me. I am the kiss of death. But let's take a look at some of our updated standings now in our conference strength. Adding the GPAC in, GPAC slots in at number 2 in your average SP plus, 47.818. Ahead of the AAC, but behind the Frontier. Same idea here with the standard deviation slots right in between the Frontier and the AAC, which honestly is kind of weird because, like we mentioned, we've got these top, 3 squads. And then you've got this big old gap in the GPAC. You would think that wouldn't be good for standard deviation, but here we are.
I think, too, it helps that the butt of the conference is kind of working its way up. Usually you have 100%. A 1 or 2 win team, a couple of them at the bottom. The only team that was below 4 wins was, Doane? And even the metrics say that they weren't that bad of a team. So it's, man, conference is improving. I mean, Dort alone is proof that competition is getting more fierce here.
Yeah,
so.
Doane and Mount Marty. Mount Marty had that 3-win season.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean they outplayed their record, honestly.
Absolutely.
So being second in both, obviously that amounts for second overall. This will get more fun as we get more teams in and the rankings start to morph and change a little bit here. as we get more in and we get more numbers crunched. But keep an eye out. It's gonna be a fun month of June. We're gonna do our best, because I have a crazy June schedule. So we're gonna do our best to keep them coming one after the other. Try to make it seamless for you. But if we don't, I apologize in advance because my June is insane. But
Why would you ever take time for yourself, Cory? I can't believe you. How selfish.
What's odd is that when I do take a week off, we'll get the DM of where'd you go? I'll just send back a picture. This time I'll just do it from Disney World.
Yeah, there you go.
It'll be fine. But we are so thankful to the guys who keep us able to do this week after week and keep us going. Our patrons here, and they are DSU Combe, Bob Boone, Roger Meyer, Jeremy Vauble, Shirley LaBella, Fred Christensen, Jerry Quickle, Ace Wellen, Brett, Marty Seabolt, Nick Ryan, Hayden Ferrigno, Kyle Gregory, Tyler Pierce, Justin Hoffman, Steve Speakman, Brian Shake, Julianne Shager, Nate Soapbeer, Stephen Cutler, Julie Lout, Dale Norton, Nathan Moore, Dylan Gonzalez, Ryan, Jason Crawford, Dustin Wilkie, Charles A. Flowers, Todd, Nick, Sean Chamberlain, Debbie, Zach Lance, and Josue Trujillo. That's not bad.
Not bad.
End of a hour-long podcast. We typically do not go this long. Please, GPAC, for my listeners' sanity, break into 2 divisions so that I can do 2 different podcasts on you next year for my own sanity, for my listeners' sanity. They don't want an hour-long podcast. I don't want to talk for an hour.
It's just more football, though.
It is
more football to talk about in that hour.
It's just like going to 20 teams gave me more coaches to talk to.
There you go.
It fills the off season quite nicely. But catch us next week. We'll have the Heart North and get to see if it's going to be Grandview in the field or if there's anyone creeping up that might give Grandview a scare next week. So, for Matt Schwartzler, I am Cory Thorpe, and we will see y'all next week. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the NAIAF Ball Podcast, powered by AdCraft USA. Be sure to contact them for all your custom apparel, merch, and uniform needs. Thanks also to our newest sponsor, Telemetry Sports. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe to the podcast and to our YouTube channel, and leave us a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. As always, if you'd like to support what we do, head over to patreon.com/NAIAFball and become a patron. We can't do what we do without our sponsors and listeners like you.